You must stay at home. You must stay at home.
They're like, but you're white. And I'm like, no, I'm Puerto Rican. They're like, no, 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 you're white. And when they try to tell me that I'm white, that is the equivalent to me going up to a black person and calling them a nigger.
Ah, you funny.
I personally don't care to hear the opinion of a transphobe or a racist or a homophobic person.
So number one, if you don't want to have conversations with those people or listen to them, you don't have to. You can remove yourself.
And now I just feel a little canceled, but maybe it's best that I'm not here.
Guys,
we're going to get back to the chat. I think Aston was next.
Yeah, let's go back to Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head and all of that stuff. Okay.
Hello people, what is good? Welcome back to another episode. As you can see, we have a lot of new faces today, and I'm really excited to discuss cancel culture, what it means, what we think of it. Is it good? Is it bad? And yeah, so we have Jay, Jordana, Nilu, Aston, Stephanie, it's a mouthful, Isabella, Sharon, Diamante, Sabrina, Diana, Queen, Etienne, Vicky, Monique, Adekola, Morgan, and Nayla will be joining us later. But I'm going to say, to kick off the debate today, cancel culture, I'm kind of in the middle. I think on the whole, I don't think you can really cancel a person. I think we're all learning and growing. We don't, we're not born with the knowledge of an encyclopedia. We're going to make mistakes. But I think, if people are doing crazy things, like people like Hitler, for example, if he was still alive, I mean, I would want to cancel someone like that, because the things he's done. But I'll just kick off and say, in general, no, I don't think we need to cancel people. And what does cancel people even really mean? Because how can you cancel a person? But yeah, who's ever next in the chat, take it away.
Hi, my name is Nilu. Thanks for having us here. I have grown to think that this particular trend is really complex, and it's become increasingly more complex because of the wide reach of social media. And someone can take a screenshot of your worst moment and really it's immemorialized forever. And so it's really a complex issue that we have to tread carefully on.
I feel like cancel culture is a word that people kind of throw around as long as you don't agree with somebody. And now it lacks accountability because no one actually told you what you did wrong. And also I feel like when you do cancel someone, you kind of ignore if that thing that they did was done in the past and you know who they are now. That being said, what they did in the past might mean something different for everyone. If someone was really homophobic in the past, for me personally, I still think if you have grown from that moment, and grown up and said, hey, I realized what I did in the past was wrong, I feel like forgiveness can be given. But for another person who is also in the LGBTQ community, they might be like, nah, that's not okay. Then it wasn't okay. Now stop trying to give them a pass. So it really depends on the person. For me personally, racism, I don't care how old you are, is never okay. If you said the N-word back to back to back, I don't care if you were 17. That's something I can't forgive you now. I don't care if you grow, because you were old enough to know that wasn't okay then, so I don't know why you think you can get a pass now.
All right, so I like to look at a glass half full perspective, and I think cancel culture gives people, the everyday people, a voice to hold people accountable, hold businesses accountable. However, it is such a new thing that, of course, we all take it to the extreme, and we just got to pull it back. And it's such a case-by-case scenario that there is no standard. And until, I don't know, maybe years down the road, or until we get like a certain system and we hold even the people who are trying to cancel others accountable, then maybe it would be the way it's supposed to be.
Okay, where I stand with current cancel culture, because I'm gonna say that because I also agree that it can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing. It has its pros and its cons. I believe that as well. I think that we can hold people responsible and make people you can't make someone better, but you can kind of force them to be better publicly and be more accountable for the things they do and how they present themselves and present certain energies into the world. But as current cancel culture, I feel like it's toxic. I honestly feel like a lot of people are taking that power and using it more as a flex. Like, oh, individually, I feel like I have this power to just end this person's career, and they're using it. And I don't believe that majority of people do their due diligence to actually find out facts. I think the problem with most of the people who join these whatever culture, especially in cancel culture, is they believe in their opinion more than they believe in fact. Everyone feels like their opinion is the fact, and no one actually believes in what facts are anymore. I think the definition of fact is blurred, but the definition of a fact is still fact, and I think that's the problem.
I have a mix of opinions that go with what Jay just said, and also Vicky. Cancel culture was happening before the what I call plandemic, and maybe some of you too. And just by saying plandemic, I could be canceled in some circles. When the unfortunate incident in Minneapolis occurred with George Floyd, I had watched a documentary, or more like a lecture, 3 hours. You can find it on bitchute.com because it's off of YouTube. And he did a spectacular job on detailing what happened and the inconsistencies. Physical things, like one person came out of the store and it looked like he had hair. The person, unfortunately, on the ground looked like he didn't. And I started looking into this. He also mentioned about an attorney in Texas who said that this man actually passed away in 2016. I told that to an organization. I was automatically stated as, that's a racist comment, you're white, this goes against anti-racism, this rewrites history, this is inappropriate, even though they were talking about the subject. So I got canceled out of my own organization. My stomach was hurting for about a day and a half because, I would never want to be unkind to somebody based on a race or religion.
Can I just say, Diamante, I also totally agree with you. Without tearing down the system unless you have something better to replace it with, because that leaves a vacuum and a void, and you have no idea what can take over. So I'm with you with that. We need to figure out a better management for it, 100%.
This is like a quick response. I get your point and I understand it. I personally don't care to hear the opinion of a transphobe or a racist or a homophobic person. Mainly because I don't have the time to do that, and I don't think anyone else has the time to do that. I've talked with many people about it, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that there are some people you can talk to possibly change their minds and their opinions about certain things, but to actively sit here and say, I'm going to include you in this conversation because, all opinions deserve to be heard, there's a bit of a difference when that person doesn't necessarily want to actually have a conversation and wants to get into an argument with people about certain things. If you're not here to have a conversation and actually possibly change your opinions and learn from other people, then no. You're getting canceled.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
So number one, if you don't want to have conversations with those people or listen to them, you don't have to. You can remove yourself. But because we have certain rights in this country, it's not your job to start disallowing other people to listen to them if they want, and to say, listen, I think you're wrong and here's why, and we can agree to disagree, and that's fine too. But for you to come up and say people with certain opinions don't get a platform, don't go to their platform, don't listen to them speak, but don't shout them down either.
I want to say really quick, Jordan, I'd like to kind of tail end off what you're saying. You're doing the same exact thing basically of what you're criticizing.
I see you, Nilu, though, with your hand up, and I see Aston as well. But yeah, Diana, go.
Vicky, I understand your point, but to me, this is my opinion. When cancel culture is, to me, inextricably linked to censorship. And as a diversity and equity and inclusion professional, there has to be a diversity of thought. There has to be a diversity of thinking. There has to be, as somebody comes up to me, I can't stand niggas. We did this a couple of weeks before. I can't stand Latinos. I can't, okay, cool. What seems to be the problem? When a person like Milo Yiannopoulos, who is gay and he's alt-right, is not allowed to speak at Berkeley, the last bastion of liberalism in the United States, what does that say about our Constitution? What does that say about our freedoms? I don't like what he has to say. I completely am opposed to what he has to say. But let him say it, because then you know how to deal with it. Okay, well, he believes this. I believe this. Be like, okay, so I know. It's not that I'm going to prevent him. I'm not going to shut him down. But he does have the right to say it. And again, it just is completely linked to censorship. And I'll go back to one of my homeboys, Dave Chappelle. He says the same thing about comedy. He knows racist, comedians that make racist jokes and everything, but he'll defend their right to say it because it's comedy is an art form. Comedy is this, and when he won the Mark Twain Award, he outlined it. And that's my thing. Like I said, Vicky, I understand your point. At the moment that it's violent, you step back. If it's calling for violence, you step back. But you allow people to say what they want to say, what they need to say, what they are feeling.
Isabella?
Well, I think cancel culture is a very dangerous concept because for so many people it means so many different things, and especially with a lot of younger people coming to light and being influencers and a lot of things like that, people are very quick to cancel at the moment and I think we've all explored that point, people don't really do their research into what the initial person that they're trying to cancel is talking about, or they don't give them the chance, especially with them being young, to be educated in the correct way to know what they've done is wrong, or if it is wrong, and it's all about opinion, because for a lot of people, I think, as we've said, it's your choice on what you look at and it's your choice on what you listen to. And I think if we say that we're not going to allow certain people because of their views to not speak, then it almost makes you just as bad as what you think their opinion is bad for whatever reason, because you're not allowing them to even voice their opinion, which doesn't make sense. And I think that's what the problem with cancel culture is a lot of the time, is like people will cancel someone because they just don't agree with their opinion, rather than just having an open conversation and trying to gauge why that's their opinion, or just trying to talk about it in general.
Basically, I consider myself to cancel a cancel culture. I think honestly, cancel culture was invented by Dave Chappelle. I think he did it as a joke for all of us, and he's just sitting back laughing like a lot of comedians are laughing. Why do you think I call myself to cancel a cancel culture?
I'm guessing you're like anti-PC. You just say what you want and don't care about the...
Well, that's for sure. But I'm also Puerto Rican, and I do not look it. And I confused a lot of people in the South, and I got in trouble at work, and I had to leave work because I spoke too freely about being a Latina. So
join the club, Sabrina. As a Cuban Dominican on the Black side, I've had that issue as well. Insane. I was too black for the Latinos, and I was not Black enough for Black people.
Here in Puerto Rico, we're all the different colors, beautiful different colors of the rainbow. And normally it's like, that's it. That's about as far as we can go in like discussing that. But in the South, it's just like, no. You got to realize the differences. And it's like, but it's so dirty. I don't want to. We're having fun. And all of a sudden it's like, it's thrown in my face. And I was like, excuse me, what? I meet someone that is ignorant, that is not healed. And they call me white. And they're like, but you're white. And I'm like, no, I'm Puerto Rican. They're like, no, you're white. And when they try to tell me that I'm white, that is the equivalent to me going up to a Black person and calling them a nigger. So that's pretty much how much I cancel culture.
Wait, what? I don't understand. I'm so confused.
I need to say something because
Here we go.
I don't understand.
Absolutely
Sorry,
not.
You're not white then? Because are you not just a white Latina?
She's not.
Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but race and ethnicity are different. You can be a white Latino, but that's a different conversation. That's different.
And the thing is,
I don't know what that is. I can't be part of that conversation and defend a white Puerto Rican.
A white Latino basically means the same way that racially I'm Black because I'm of African descent. It means that if you're a white Latino, you're of European descent, as in the Europeans who came to the Caribbean and settled there are white, so you're of European descent. It's like a lot of Latinos who do in America who do DNA
And that's
testing.
totally fine. And you can say that, but that's only one part. And the hard part about my culture, so you guys know a little bit more about Puerto Rican culture, what hurts the most is the disappearing act of our native culture to this island, the native people, the Black culture of this island. So it's like when you tell me that I am European descent and you're trying to explain to me what my origin is, it is very disrespectful. So imagine if someone came up to you and said, well, you're just Black.
But they couldn't do that because I know but I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm just saying in general, what you asked what a white Latino is. So I'm saying that's what a white Latina is. My dad's Cuban, my mom's
I wouldn't
Jamaican.
know. I'm not a white Latina, so I don't know.
I know, but you asked that question. So I'm just answering the question that you asked. I'm saying white Latinos. Are you a white
Latina?
No, but white Latinos exist. I'm a Black Latino, and I know people still find it weird when I say I'm Cuban. Like, what do you mean? How can you be Latino
also,
and Black?
Can I just say
so
something
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, please never in lifetime think it's okay to say that people have baggage from their history. That's wild to me. And also, we don't compare other races. We don't compare other people's experiences.
Racial history baggage is a thing.
I don't call it baggage personally, because people are still affected by shit that's happened in history, and especially when a lot of it still
Welcome
happens
to my club.
today. That's not baggage, firstly. Secondly, you can't compare people's experiences. It's the same thing in this country. We keep saying BAME all the time, and people keep saying, stop referring to everyone as BAME. It means Black and minority ethnic, by the way, because Asian people don't have the same experience as Black people. Black people don't have the same experience as white people. We all have different experiences as different cultures, different ethnicities. Racism isn't compared. It's not, oh, well, Latino people have experienced racism, so I'm going to cancel out Black people's experience of racism. But that's not how it works.
And being called a white Latino is very different from being called a nigger, because a nigger has historical baggage. That's very different. I just want to say that.
Thank you for saying that, Destiny.
There's a big difference between calling someone a white Latino, which not talking about you in general.
What is the difference between someone ignoring my identity, which is the Puerto Rican scar, by the way? You're not even acknowledging the Puerto Rican scar. Are you noticing that?
But no one's denying that.
I had to learn your scars. I had to learn African-American scars first before my Puerto Rican heritage.
Yeah, but that's
the American colonization. American Black people do not understand that they're also colonizers.
But it's not a tit for tat, though. It's not a, well, you've not understood my experience.
This
also,
is not the conversation that we're supposed to be having.
Don't ever in your lifetime think you can say the N-words. Don't say that.
We're not talking about your culture. I'm talking about you comparing the N-word and saying that being called a white Latino is the same as being called a nigger. Being called the N-word does not have the same historical baggage.
I just told you the truth.
I'm sorry, but white Latinos, I'm not talking about you, but I'm saying in general, white Latinos were not beaten and lynched and taken and shackled from their homeland and their culture stripped. And then most times, most Black people, the last word they heard before they were lynched was nigger. That's very different to being called a white Latino.
Disgusting word. I would completely agree.
But you just compared it and said that being called a white Latino is being same as
well,
being
we're in
called a
2021. When are we supposed to step back and progress?
You're out here saying the N-word.
Put it this way. I think we also have to remember.
I thought it was a safe place. If I offended anyone,
this is a safe space.
This is the same thing.
But it's the same way. As a person that's not a part of the LGBT community, if someone who told me don't say the F word, don't say F-A-G-G-O-T, I don't use that word because I respect it's not my place. So in the same way, I'm just saying as a Black person, I think it's not your place to compare the word nigger to being called a white Latino. That's not in the same realm at all. And I think at that,
it is okay for you to tell a Latina that she's white.
But I never called you white. That's the whole point.
Can I say something as well? I'm mixed, so half Black, half white. If someone calls me white, I know I'm not, but I don't go, that's like me calling you an N-word. That doesn't make sense.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
There's no equivalency with that.
That's fine. I can respect that.
People aren't being racist to me by saying that I look white. That's not offensive.
But what about cancel culture?
It's ignorant, but it's not racist.
Yeah, can we get back on topic?
This is the problem with cancel culture. We're telling someone how to perceive themselves. Because even though I'm a Black man, and that I ain't gonna go too deep into it, but I get it. But at the same time, we're also ignoring certain things that she feels, because the one thing she said that nobody seems to acknowledge was the fact that as a Puerto Rican, she also acknowledges that part of her heritage is Black. So we're
at the N-word, her use of the N-word, but at the same time, we're not acknowledging that she is acknowledging her Black side.
But
So
no one
that
has
being
denied
said,
that. No one has, I just want to put it out there, no one has denied what Sabrina's saying in terms of her heritage, how she identifies racially. No one has combated that. All I said was, it's not comparable to say that nigger is the same as calling
I'm not
somebody a white
saying you
Latina.
per
That's
se. I'm
my
not
only qualm.
specifying anyone. I'm just
Yeah.
saying in general,
No, but
because
in
it was done.
general, but
It
in this
was done.
conversation, no
Can
one
I
has,
just say
no
one
one
thing
has said,
and I'll
wait,
can I
Sabrina,
just
Sabrina, can I just, wait, can I just, Etienne, can I
It's
just
not.
finish
You
real
can
quick?
check.
Etienne, so let me just finish real quick. I just want to make sure it's clear. In this conversation, no one has said that Sabrina is saying she's wrong for saying I'm not a white Latina. No one has come against that. The only uproar that has come is the comparison between the word nigger and calling somebody a white Latina, which nobody has done.
I know.
Nobody
So
says
this is
Sabrina's
what
a white
I'm saying.
Latina.
I'm also going off what I'm seeing in the chat. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, because I'm not. See, I'm. If you look at the chat, you'll probably catch what I'm saying. Somebody mentioned, there was a couple people that was mentioning about her saying the N-word.
Yeah.
The thing is, the problem with that is, and like I said, I'm trying to swing it back to cancel culture.
Yeah.
The problem with that is understanding what is fact and what is perception. Now, we're saying what she can and can't say, but in actuality, if she identifies part of herself as Black, why can't she say the word nigga if we're going to say it? If we're going to say nigga, then why we can tell someone else who also identifies as being Black to say the word either? That's the thing.
Sabrina didn't say that.
Sabrina didn't say she identified
that.
I didn't say anybody said anything. What do you say she didn't say?
She didn't say she was part Black. Did you say that, Sabrina?
Yeah,
She
I did.
did
I said
identify.
that's my
She said
heritage,
Puerto
that I'm
Rican,
Puerto
and the
Rican, that I am
Puerto Rican is
Indian, African, and European.
She mentioned it. She did. I'm not hearing. She definitely mentioned it.
So that means you can
Because
compare.
I heard that. And the thing is, I
that
know
means
that
you
'cause I
can
have a
call
lot of
someone the
Puerto Rican
N-word if they say that you're.
No,
Like,
I'm saying for the purpose of comparison, so you understand the
me-
pain most Puerto Ricans experience because no one really gives a shit about our history because we are a colony, that it is equivalent to that when people completely disregard what my culture is.
I'm just going to say, let's agree to disagree. In my opinion, it's not at all, but we'll carry.
But
well, come to Puerto Rico and then I'll take you on a tour.
It's not the same. It's not the same as you can't compare it.
And also, just to say, and also just in general, I think most of us, even Black people, are of different descents. As a Black person, obviously, I'm Caribbean, but obviously I'm of African descent, how slavery went down. I could also say I've got white in me because DNA-wise, there's European ancestry in me. But I know that racially, for the most part, I'm Black. No one's here to deny anyone's identities, but I think it's very important that we're respectful. And I just think, again, saying things like being called a white Latina is the same as being called a nigger is two very different things. The historical weight is very different, and I just want to make that very clear.
I didn't mention
yeah,
that.
not even
I think we're getting too direct, but not listening to what's being said. But that's what I'm saying. That's my point. That's the problem with cancel culture. We're not fully listening to dialogue, and we're ignoring the dialogue. Like you, and to bring up a very perfect point, you said you didn't hear her say about the African American part, about the Black part in Puerto Ricans.
And you're still talking about
Sabrina said it. No, Sabrina.
No,
I listened to everything Sabrina said. Sabrina didn't say that she personally is of African American descent or African descent. Sabrina said that African Americans are also like colonizers. I don't know if everyone caught that part.
African Americans colonized Puerto Rico all the time.
But
that's what was said.
Talking about what I said.
African American culture dominates Puerto Rican culture. It's a problem we have right now, actually. If you come to my island, you can be part of the conversation. The discussion is hot.
But this is not a comparison.
It's not. I've struggled, so I'm going to suddenly just start cussing out African Americans, saying that they've got this kind of history.
I did it as a joke.
Make these comparisons, though. It's just insane to me that you're trying to do this.
I think Aston was next.
Yeah, let's go back to Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head and all of that stuff. Okay.
So in the way of murder, most people don't agree a murder is acceptable. So as a group of society, we decided we'll cancel that. You're not allowed to do it. And if you remember, murder was actually allowed way back when we didn't have these rules. So I think what's happened in modern day is we've now got a lot more things to be able to cancel. And what that's doing is giving everybody with all their different genres of interests and their ideologies to actually come out and say, well, I don't agree with your ideology, I don't agree with what you're saying, and then we decide to start cancelling these just under the idea that, well, actually I disagree with you. But when actually we've gone away from what it was wholly for. It's not about race or anything like that. It's about our society. How do we all work together, live together, right? And what do we agree with? This is effectively, we're talking about laws here, not really cancel culture.
Thank you, Aston. And Nicola, it's you.
Right, keeping this on cancel culture, I feel like it's something where it does have potential to be useful, but then we're in a case where people are canceling more on opinion rather than actual facts, and that seems to be the issue with it. Because we've seen when it could actually be useful when everyone does come together. Like, what's a good example? Like with
R. Kelly. Yeah, cancel
with
that
R.
man
Kelly.
forever.
That was an example of cancel culture actually doing its thing. Because when everyone said it was cancelled, it was cancelled. And we just need to get to a stage where it's that people are able to understand that, or because you don't like something doesn't mean it needs to be cancelled. Because that's what people don't seem to actually get right now.
Very true. Who's next? Sharon, I think.
Cancel culture, the words cancel culture, I don't know where they came from. I honestly don't do much research on the topic, but I thought it would be pretty educational. Just because people don't agree with things and they can't necessarily have the right types of conversations about it, it reflects more about where we all come from. As far as where we are in society nowadays, I think that cancel culture being a trigger and a trigger word is effective and necessary. As far as where we're going as a people, as human beings, I believe it's part of the process of becoming a better society worldwide.
In terms of my view, in my opinion, with regards to cancel culture, I have not yet participated in cancel culture, but I understand the intentions, but perhaps the execution may raise some questions. What I mean by understanding the intention is that when people do wrong, I'm picking up from Aston, is it Aston, I think, when he was mentioning criminals. So when people do wrong, they need to be held accountable. So the same way the criminal justice system works. So cancel culture is more like a community, or what we would call mob justice. So basically 3 things happen. So first things first, they call out the wrong. So when somebody does something wrong, we call out the bad behavior or the act that was committed. And then the second thing, we boycott their work so they can feel the pain, I guess, and not reap any benefits until they've, I guess, apologized or learned from whatever they've done wrong. What's wrong to me is not wrong to someone else, but our constitution, back home, that's why a lot of people that are cancelled for racist things, it ties back to section 16 of our constitution. Then it's easier. It's a criminal offense in my country for you to be pushing, such ideas and behaviors.
So I have a lot of notes. I just want to make sure that when I make these notes that you're taking it from a journalistic point of view and not personal. I find it, it's a little bit confusing when I know that there might be some people that have been hurt by a certain culture, a certain race, or both, and they can't actually express that because they would be deemed racist. Whereas me, I'm 25% Northern African. If someone hurt me, like in a way of abuse or whatnot, and you might say, well, why do you even have to mention the culture or the race? Well, because of what our last speaker, Queen, was saying, that there are certain cultures that still feel that things are in the norm. So that's just something that I feel that we should be able to be open about without being offensive. And I feel that there is a way to do that, but some people take things differently. Okay, more notes. Journalistic point of view, again, just would like to know, because I've heard this. I heard one person in my life say that word that none of us want to say, and say that there are white and black, that word. So that's an offensive word, obviously, but just so our audience knows, that came from the country, right? Niger, which is, that's, I don't want to sound silly here. I know
Niger.
Nigerian, there's
Niger.
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 Thank you. I'm so, thank you. I know that there was black on black slave trade. So, you know, that's concerning because many people are always deemed bad because you're white. But I know that in history, there were actually white slaves too. So there has been slavery in all races.
Hi Monique, I just wanted to say I want to keep this conversation really specific to cancel culture in general, not historical. I don't really want to get into that conversation. I feel like it's kind of derailed into a whole different
I think it's
topic
cancel
of
culture.
conversation.
It's cancel culture related.
I don't really want to discuss there being white and black slaves. We've had conversations like that already. We want to talk more about cancel culture in today's society. Thank you.
Well, I was just saying, if we bring these kinds of things up, sometimes you are canceled. So I wanted to address these topics. And now I just feel a little canceled. So, you know, I apologize. I'm trying to do my best, but maybe it's best that I'm not here. Thank you.
Okay, have a nice evening.
Well, this has been lively, hasn't it, to be fair to you? I'm glad to say I'm there thinking to myself, well, this is, I'll put my ears up for this one. I've looked it up and it says a form of ostracization which someone is thrust out of society or professional circles. So Queenie mentioned, it kind of sounds like a prison where we go through a judicial system and we put people who have broken certain common laws in prison, but there's a process of how long they go to jail for, what they've gone to jail for, and how they've been reintroduced into society. Ideally, that is how it's meant to go. I want everyone to, let's say this group is in charge of cancel culture. So we have the power here to cancel whoever we want. And I'm just going to mention a few names. You don't have to say what you would do, just have a think about it. Bill Crosby, should we cancel him? Louis C. Clark, the comedian, he's still not being able to work. Should he be able to work? Should he be able to actually go on stage, even if people want to go and see? Harvey Weinstein is in jail at the moment. J.K. Rowling, similar sort of thing. She said various tweets about transgender people. Should we cancel her? Should we stop watching her film? Should we stop her from even making money off it? Kevin Hart, he's mentioned quite a lot of stuff as well. Should we cancel him, and how long for? R. Kelly, we've mentioned with his music. So it's got to be, we have to have a conversation and be open to everyone's ideas as much as we might not necessarily hear them, and as much as sometimes they might go off topic as well. Because that's the only way we're going to have a better society than the one we had before.
Okay, so I just wanted to firstly address my very first point was that I'm not against other people's opinions. In fact, I love to talk to other people with opposing opinions because I want to hear where you're coming from. There's no way we can really move in advance and possibly come to a good conclusion if no one knows where people are coming from. I get that. My thing is that I'm not personally interested in talking to people who aren't willing to have a conversation, in the sense that they are just here to create an argument, you know, get a rise out of a bunch of people and then never actually have a full conversation. I don't like those kind of people, and you can kind of tell after like 5-10 minutes into a conversation with them that a conversation isn't about to happen, which is why either I'll ask them to leave if we're in a whole group conversation, and or myself will leave, because I want to have conversations with people, and there's no point in having a conversation if all you're trying to do here is not answer anyone's questions about your position and then argue with other people on very minute things and tone police. That's just not cute. It's not a vibe. We're old enough to, you know, be aware that that's not okay in any instance. You should be old enough to have a position and then explain that position and then answer questions. And if you can't answer questions, say, I'm not that well educated enough, or I didn't think about that like that, and then come back a bit later. But to come into a conversation with, you know, with a controversial point and then never explain it, never do anything to advance your point and or try to educate someone else, instead you're just looking for argument, is not okay. Personally, I take a lot of anthropology classes, culture anthropology classes based off of racism and all that good stuff. And sometimes you have certain students in there who just want to start an argument and not actually have a point on anything. And that just, it doesn't get us anywhere. And in fact, it just makes people frustrated. And then we start arguing in circles because no one wants to have a conversation.
I've not done this before, so it's been really, really interesting to hear everybody's points of view. I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't actually know what cancelling culture was. So when I first literally, as in you're going to meet your friend at 8 for a drink and then you cancel on them. So I know that's probably stupid, but I thought that's cancel culture, you know, because that is a very common thing, cancelling on people in real life. Like for Western culture, for example, you know, and sometimes it's pressed on to a lot of other cultures saying this should be cancelled, this isn't right, we think this is what should be done, you know, and other places are like, no.
I feel like it depends on, I mean, to me, every situation is based on the individual. It's based on what the incident is, whether it's based on ignorance, whether it's based on a place of hate and genuine, you know, like trying to cause destruction, for example. To me, cancel culture is like someone doing something or saying something very, very wrong and offensive to others, and then saying, I'm no longer going to support this person in any way. Like, I'm not going to buy their music, I'm not going to watch their movies, I'm not going to whatever, or just saying that I'm no longer going to give them time as a person. That's what cancel culture is to me. And I was having this discussion earlier with my boyfriend, and he said to him, cancel culture is if someone does something controversial and then people then go and look back and start digging for more things in order to then say, oh, actually, this person has a whole history of shit, so let's cancel them because this isn't the first time they've done it or whatever. Whereas for me, it's like that, yeah, that can be problematic. I do feel like in some instances it is good to dig out information because, you know, you never know how long certain things have been going on for, in terms of you want to go really deep into things like what somebody was saying earlier about like rape and things like that, then maybe you do need to delve into things. But in terms of like, let's say someone said something back in 2014 and they were clearly a teenager and things were clearly accepted back then, and you dig it up and you're like, this person's now cancelled because they said that. That is where I think it is kind of damaging. Because like I said, you have to look at the situation as a whole. The other person that I brought up earlier was someone like Mark Wahlberg, who, when he was a teenager, was throwing rocks at Black people, calling them the N-word. That's coming from a place of hate. That's not ignorance. You can't be ignorant in order to think, you know.
He was very Asian as well. He went to jail for attempted murder, I think, for throwing.
He sure did. He almost killed a man. Yeah, he almost killed a man. And he forgave him, but he almost killed him actually.
We're wrapping up now, so if anyone has any final points they want to say, just let us know in the chat. I think it's Diana next.
You almost walk a fine line. Thank you. And Neela, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I disagree a little bit. But you almost walk a fine line with regards to cancel culture, and that's sometimes the line you don't want to walk, because again, it borders on censorship and it borders on, you know, your right to free speech. Rush Limbaugh, for example, in the United States, says some horrendous. You go on to Fox News, they're always talking trash, always talking shit. They're always talking cancel culture, but you know, Rush Limbaugh is he somebody that I wanted to see be quiet, you know, and truth be told, may he rest in peace. He died, you know, may he rest in whatever peace that he defines peace as. But anyway, do we cancel him because I don't like what he said? No, I just turn the channel. I mean, and I don't watch him, taking away his viewership. But you know, I don't necessarily want to walk that line of censorship. I don't want it, you know, to have it, you know, limit my voice. I still watch the Cosby Show. I'm sorry about, you know, somebody, if that offends somebody, I apologize. But a long time ago, somewhere upwards of like maybe 25 to 30 years ago, Bill Cosby and Dr. Camille Cosby gave $20 million to Spelman University. They gave $6 million to Howard University when the schools were in dire straits. How many countless children of color have gone to college because of Bill Cosby and Camille Cosby?
But that's like saying you can't cancel a bad action just because someone's done a good one. Like two wrongs, like, do you know what I mean? Like a right doesn't correct your wrong.
A right is not going to correct. A right's not going to. You're right about that. A right is not going to correct the wrong. But am I going to be like, am I going to, and am I going to say, well, you know what? I'm going to give Bill Cosby his $20 million back. I'm going to give Bill Cosby that $6 million back because I found out that he was cheating on his wife. And at that time, we didn't know all about what we have now. Is how we're going to give back the money.
Bill Cosby is a great example. Sometimes we talk about the person, but we forget about the victims. And I think about if I was one of the women that Bill Cosby raped, drugged, whatever, would I really want to see him still collecting accolades or making money from the TV shows that he's created? I don't really think so. So I think, I guess he's received the ultimate consequence because he's gone to jail. But for the people that, have committed horrendous crimes, or done horrible things, and they still have platforms and still are making money, I think sometimes we forget that we are just the surveyors or the spectators of their art and their films and their programs, but their actual victims have to watch them and see them still making a living and making money despite all the horrible things they've done. And if we can, if we don't believe in someone's causes or we think they've done horrible things, maybe the whole world might not cancel them, but we don't have to pay for them or, bye Sharon, it's lovely to meet you. We don't have to give them money and fame and all that. But yeah, sorry, Morgan, I just wanted to say that before I forgot.
Just for my final closing, I wanted to just mention that like when someone says or does something harmful to a person or like a particular group, for example, the gay community, I think let's allow the gay community to feel it and respond because they're the most affected, essentially. I always find it very weird when something like that happened and the gay community or the Black community would say something was offensive and people would jump in and say, you are being insensitive, who are you to block the people? So I'm just saying, who are we to block people from feeling offended? Because we can't block people from, feeling offended or harmed by what is being said. Let's allow them to feel that one. And I guess for us here and also people at home, I guess if we want to grow and be better people, let's introspect every now and then. Let's ask ourselves what behaviors and what actions are we taking that are potentially harming other people. And this is a daily debate with yourself, and also welcome the feedback, because sometimes some people do give you feedback that you've hurt their feelings or you've done that. Let's grow, let's unlearn a few things, let's learn new things, and also teach people around us and try and be better people so that mistakes can go back to being, spilling coffee on someone, not, a mistake being saying the N-word or raping a child.
Just getting back to what I said before, Bill Crosby, Louis C. Clark, Harvey Weinstein, Jermaine Greer, J.K. Rowling, Kevin R. Kelly, these people, what you thought about, and I'm glad Diane brought it up. Just getting back to the point, if you really had to think about it, every single one of us has either a tolerance or a time period or an idea of how much we're going to cancel them. I haven't seen Bill Crosby's work for a long time, not because I necessarily was going out of my way to do it or necessarily because I cancelled him. It's just that there was nothing on TV that of his. If I was to sit down and I had a bit of time, I probably would watch the Cosby Show. Louis C. Clark, he's a comedian. Never watched his work before, so I can't say I'm cancelling him now. Harvey Weinstein, I'm not going to cancel watching his films because a lot of his films are great. But we should be aware of a lot of the actors and the actresses especially that had to go through hell just to make that art in the first place. Same with Jermaine Greer, I still don't feel it's wrong, or J.K. Rowling, that they should be banned for what's perceived as transgender-phobic comments. Having said that, this is one of the reasons why, just getting back to my point, why it's very important to have everyone to have an opinion and talk about these things, because I might not necessarily be offended by any transgender comments or homophobic comments because I'm not transgender and I'm not gay. And if someone's making comments or made comments in the past, like Eddie Murphy with Raw and Delirious, I don't necessarily need him to come to me and say to me, I'm sorry for making these comments. What I need him to do is not make these comments moving forward. I think that's more important than him saying sorry for comments that he made in the past. And making sure he doesn't make other people who are gay and other people, and just again, getting back to my point, we need to hear everyone and give everyone that validity, even if at first they may not necessarily seem like they should have an opinion. They should be felt like they heard. And then after that, if their opinion is not in the right interest of the wider community, at least they've been heard, and we keep it moving.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank you for having me. This has been a very interesting, and me personally, I didn't, maybe it's because I'm probably used to it, but I didn't feel like it was chaotic. It was normal to me, but I'm used to these type of conversations. You talk to somebody, just real quick, I did 12 years in the Army, so I'm used to being around different cultures. I make friends with people from outside cultures very easily, so I'm used to these type of conversations. I love these type of conversations for the simple fact that it educates me. But I think that's what a lot of people are missing. My thing with cancel culture is it feeds this, what is now a commercialized pop culture of environment. Now it's a pop culture. It's not a culture created for the sake of keeping accountability and responsibility. It's created just to feel like you have some type of flex over some celebrity that you felt like had a power over you. And now it's used by what I would consider a stable of sheep, and used just to commercialize and make it's a hashtag now. These important things, Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, cancel culture, all these things have been reduced to a hashtag. And I have a lot of notes here, but I'm not gonna go through all of them, but that's basically, in general, that's what I'm saying. People are quick to respond and slow to listen. You will cut a person off thinking you're responding to what they said before you.
Say that one more time for the people in the back. Say that again. Say that one more time.
People are quick to respond and slow to listen, because they will cut you off in the middle of your statement and claim they're responding to you, but never know the point you made because you never actually made it.
This has been interesting. I mean, Jay basically covered just about most of it anyway. But cancel culture at this point, it's basically going to a point where it's like now we just see things, and like you said, people are going off more their opinion rather than actually trying to actually learn shit and figure stuff out and actually listen to where people are coming from. It's more like they hear something that triggers them, and everything else you said has been null and void. And it's like you're cancelled for that. And which probably does play into why no one's actually ever really cancelled. I mean, Kevin Hart was cancelled, but he's still doing shit. I mean, they tried to cancel Dave Chappelle and he just laughed. So it's like we're at that point now where it's like cancel culture don't really mean shit, because whatever it was meant to mean has been lost, because now it's just done for bands more than anything else. So at this point, does it really matter? Is it really relevant, or are people just trying to have, like someone said, some semblance of control over people's roles in their lives? And you're going to cancel someone, just stop paying attention to them. Do you really have to go as far as to say, screaming that they need to be cancelled so other people agree with you? Well, yeah, this has been an interesting episode. It's been fun.
It'll be fun editing this. 2 hours of chaos. I think that's everyone. So Ruth, take us out.
Auntie Ruth.
Hola.
Hola.
Hola, hola. Estoy cansada.
¿Qué es la que hay?
Ah, you funny.
Taking us out of this conversation. And I'm going to do this in the only way I know how. So, my beautiful people, I hope that everybody has at least taken one thing from today's conversation. I think that is important for a lot of like-minded people and other people to be involved in conversations as long as it's effective and productive. I think that is the basis of cancel culture. And just like a lot of other people have said in this conversation, particular to Jay and to Ade and to Vicky, cancel culture, yes, it is subjective to opinions and personalities and experiences. And the essence of it, what it's trying to do, makes sense. But what happens is, and all you guys know me, and if you've been watching all the episodes, you already know how I am or what I do. As long as there is ignorance and as long as there is white supremacy, things like that are never going to work.
Love
Thank
you
you
too,
so
girl. Love you
much.
too.
Honestly, so much love. You always take us out with the words of advice. And with that, that was another episode of the Lockdown Sum Up. I hope you all enjoyed. Everyone's social medias who wants them to let me know. They're going to be in the bio, description box, all that jazz. And yeah, thank you all for joining. This was a crazy conversation, but that's what this is made for, to invite different pieces of different thoughts and opinions. But yeah, have a lovely evening, guys, and we'll see you next week. Bye.